Welcome to the Dangerously Divine podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Loren, entrepreneur, life coach, and your new spiritual bestie. We dive deep into all things feminine magnetism, mindset, and empowerment. Prepare to unlock your full potential and activate your feminine gifts. If you're an ambitious woman who's ready to stop playing small, step into your feminine power, and claim a life beyond your wildest dreams, then you're in the right place. So go ahead and turn up the volume. You're about to hear juicy stories, inspirational advice, and transformational tips that'll help you up-level your life and align with the divine goddess within you. More self-confidence, freedom, and abundance are all just a play away. Thank you for listening and enjoy this episode. Hello, and welcome back to the Dangerously Divine podcast. Today, we are talking about a very special subject, how decluttering your home can help you achieve more harmony and balance. And today I am joined by Melinda, who is a professional organizer, certified KonMari consultant, and former psychologist who helps empower women to take action to declutter and sort their homes so that they can free up space, time, and energy to live a life that is simpler, calmer, and more joyful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Melinda.
Thanks, Rachel. It's great to be here.
So, for those people who maybe have not heard of your business, Live Life Organized, can you talk a little bit about how you started this business, why you decided to move from psychology into professional organizing?
So I had been working for about 20 years as a psychologist and a manager, and I was working really long hours. I was having to travel a lot for work. I was tired and I was stressed. And I had turned to retail therapy as my coping mechanism. So my house was slowly filling up and I was drowning in a sea of possessions, and it literally did feel quite overwhelming. And then 2021, I found myself on an unplanned work sabbatical when my role was made redundant. So I took a little bit of a holiday, and during the holiday, I went into a bookshop, and in the store was a table with a big pile of books, and on top of the pile of books was The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. And so I bought the book, I read it on the flight home, and it was like an epiphany. I had lots of spare time on my hands, so I applied the method to my whole home and to my whole life. And it was literally life-changing, the impact that it had on my mindset and my behaviors. So I immediately started Googling how to become a KonMari consultant. I signed up for the training, went through the certification process, quit my corporate career, and set up my business, Live Life Organized, so that I could help support and empower other women to experience this joy and freedom that comes from decluttering your home and your life.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like a beautiful introduction to what we're going to talk about today, because I don't know if you can see my background. I collect books and I love reading.
Right.
But it seems like it's one of those things that maybe has become an unhealthy obsession with buying books.
Right.
So I'm excited, just as the listeners probably are, to get into this episode. And I'm wondering for you, what was so magical? Like, what was that aha moment for you that made you say, okay, I need to apply this to my whole life?
I think there were a few things for me. As I mentioned, I just felt overwhelmed by a lot of my possessions. And even though I'd managed to put them all behind closed doors, although the cupboards were full, so then the home office was full as well, it felt like a weight. And so once I started decluttering and just keeping what really was serving me, it felt like a weight had lifted off. So I felt lighter. Life became simpler and easier. One of the things that we know when we have too much stuff is we can't find our items, and research indicates that we can waste up to 55 minutes a day looking for lost items.
Oh my God.
I know, and I know myself when I reflected, leaving the house in the morning, I couldn't find my car keys. Where were they? Where was that? Where are my glasses? And if you add up all the time, it does mount up fairly quickly. And so as soon as I had gone through this process, kept only what supports me to live my best life, and everything has a home. Now getting ready in the morning, going out to activities is so quick and easy.
That must feel so empowering for you.
It's
That's awesome.
incredibly empowering. Yes. And of course, you save money as well, because often we can't find our items. So we end up going out and buying another item, or we're not really sure what we've got. So we end up buying duplicates. And so that's a lot of wasted money as well.
Oh yeah, that's a good point too. I never even thought about that. As someone who has, the psychology degree, have you thought about maybe the reasons that you turned to retail therapy? Because I think that could be really helpful for my listeners. I live in Los Angeles. Everyone here is a little bit materialistic to some degree. And so I think people would be really interested in finding out the psychology behind retail therapy and that kind of excuse that women tend to make.
Yes. Well, it's a quick fix, really, retail therapy. And of course, the marketers are great at attracting us, aren't they? So we have to have it. Even with organizing gadgets, I've noticed, there's all those gorgeous pretty baskets and gadgets which they tell you, buy these and your life will be organized and simple. And of course, it's not. So it can be that quick fix that we're looking for. And quick high, you're out there and you see a sale item, oh, what a bargain. And so I think for me, the KonMari Method, the psychologist in me was really drawn to the method. So what it does involve, firstly, is visualizing your ideal lifestyle. How do you want your space to look? How do you want it to feel? And how will it function? How will your day flow? What activities you'll be doing? And having that vision will help you declutter, keeps you motivated because you want to get there. And it also helps you make decisions on your items. So when you're touching and thinking about an item, think about, does that fit into my future life, that ideal life? And if it doesn't, you let it go. And so the method is very introspective. What you need to do is touch and consider mindfully every single item that you own in your home. And so this really forces us to confront and think deeply about what's important to us, what is truly important to us. So we learn a lot about ourselves during that process. And the average home can have 300,000 items. So this is a big journey that you're headed on.
My God.
But it is so rewarding. And as I say, you do learn a lot about yourself and become much more mindful and intentional. So as I mentioned, I was a serious shopaholic and I no longer am a shopaholic. So I know exactly what I have in my home. I know what I need. And so if I am out shopping, it's a very mindful shop.
That's beautiful. I love that. It's so funny because as you were talking, I really asked that question for me because my dad always used to take me shopping and it was normally when I was sad. And I was maybe like a kid, like 5, 6 years old when I was first introduced to this idea of retail therapy. And he even called it retail therapy.
Yeah.
And he literally said to me, like, who needs a therapist when you have a credit card? And so for the longest time, that became my go-to, was like, oh, okay, like I don't need to feel my feelings. I can just feel that temporary bliss when I have something new and shiny and cool. And then, like you said, I misplace it or I buy another one of it because I lost it. And it so spirals. I'm happy to say that I'm on the other side of that now. And honestly, like I talk about my parents a lot in these episodes because they have had a profound impact on my life. My dad is a chronic overspender, especially on retail therapy, things he doesn't need. And my mom is such an organized type A person. And she, doesn't spend outside of her means. And she very much prides herself on that. So I feel like I've been blessed because I now see both sides and I have that balance. And like I said to you before we started recording this episode, I'm like, I did talk about this on one other episode at the beginning of the show about the importance of like spring cleaning or cleaning in the new year around that time. So I just want to say that I think it's super important to do. And so for any listeners out there, specifically women, feel like they have to do it all. I just had someone come on the show who's a nutritionist, and she was talking about getting help and seeking help when, you can't make yourself healthy meals or you don't know what to eat. And so what would your advice be to the women who kind of feel inferior because they can't keep their homes clean or they feel the weight of things being disorganized?
Yeah, that's a great point, because there is often a lot of shame and embarrassment that we have as women about our homes. And we need to let go of that. We've got to be really kind to ourselves. And if we look at the statistics, you're not on your own. Globally, people are struggling with the amount of possessions that they have and trying to stay on top of them. So the key points people to start, firstly, is to think about that ideal lifestyle that you want, have a lovely, clear vision, and then start small is the big thing. So don't think about the whole home, because that would just be overwhelming and you won't get started. So start small. And the KonMari method is great because we sort by categories. So we start with clothing, then we do books, papers, kimono, which is the Japanese term for miscellaneous. It's pretty much everything else in your house, your kitchen, your bathroom, CDs, toiletries, etc. And then sentimental is last. And we work through those categories, and they can be broken down into subcategories. So if clothing feels too overwhelming for you, you can break it down and start with your soft drawer as a first step. And we do that category order because we tend to disperse our items throughout our home. And it's not until we bring everything of a category together that we truly appreciate what we own. So I know myself, when I did my decluttering, I had probably maybe 10 hoodies in my main closet. Then in the spare bedroom, there was another 5. And then there was one in my sports bag, some in the laundry, some in the cook, one in the car. It wasn't until I bought all of those hoodies together that I realized, I've got 20 hoodies and 5 green ones that look exactly the same.
Oh my God.
So, yes. So and we all do this. We disperse our items. So choose a small category to start with, gather all of those items together, and then do that joy check. Does this item spark joy? Is it adding value to my life, serving a purpose? And if it is, keep it. If it's not, then it's time to discard it.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, yes.
I love that. I think that, yeah, I would agree. It's probably overwhelming to do everything all at once.
Yes.
And thank you so much for acknowledging that women feel the shame and just need to not feel that anymore.
Yeah.
Because it is like universal across so many cultures that, women don't ask for help. And I think it is time to start normalizing that a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yes.
So how do you think that decluttering as a whole can help women achieve more harmony and balance? If they've decided, okay, I want to take on this task of decluttering, maybe my car or my home or my office, how can it help them in the big picture of their life?
Yeah. There's actually some really great research around, as well as my own personal experience and how I see the benefits for my client. But there's some interesting studies that show that if we're in cluttered environments, and this is particularly so for women, it raises our cortisol level, which is our primary stress hormone. And of course, that makes us more susceptible to feeling overwhelmed, depleted of energy, unable to focus. And sometimes it can lead to anxiety. And so there's a physical impact of having all of this clutter. And we also know that our brains can only focus on so much stimuli. So if there's lots of things in our environment, it's difficult for us to focus. It's difficult for us to make decisions. And so by decluttering and having only what you need and love in your home, it provides this great clarity of thought and improves our emotional well-being.
That's beautiful. Wow. I never even thought about that point that you made.
Yes.
Wow. So would you say that decluttering is kind of like an ongoing process, or it's something that like once you do the KonMari method once, you're like good to go? Because I know that you have that psychology background. So where does the psychology come into play of how often you should be doing it? Is it a performative thing versus are you actually getting organized and decluttering your mind? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Look, I always say to people, I don't know, it's a cliche term, but it is a journey. With the KonMari method, we talk about a tiny festival, which is a once in a lifetime event where we do
Oh,
declutter. Yes. So if you work through all of those 5 categories, so clothing, books, papers, kimono, sentimental, your whole home, that's what we call a tidying festival. But of course, there is ongoing maintenance. So you can't just do your festival, poof, wipe your hands and think that's it. So it is a journey. And as you work through those categories, you actually build up your decision-making muscle, which is why we leave sentimental to last, because that is really challenging. So you want those
smart.
skills by the time you get there. Yes. And obviously by the time you get there, you think back to your clothing and you think, oh, actually, I hung on to a few items, but really I realize now I can let go of them. And you will find that happens. So it is an ongoing journey and maintenance is critical. So one of the key things for maintenance, the best key strategy I can give you is accumulation. Think about what you are bringing into your home to the future. So you need to do that joy check. If you're out shopping, make sure you really do that intentional thinking, the joy check. And you're only going to bring into your home what sparks joy and what's going to be used and add value to your life. And the same thing we're often offered gifts, aren't we? A friend of mine who had worked with me said she went to a conference and they're offering free pens. And she said, normally I would have grabbed up all of these pens and taken them home. But I thought to myself, actually, I have enough pens at home. I don't need any more. And so it's really that stopping and thinking about what we're accumulating make a difference.
Can we talk for a minute about the mindset behind that? Because,
Yeah.
as you said that, I feel like previously I worked in the beauty industry and I worked in marketing specifically. So, creating content and social media content. So, having to always have a new product because when you scoop into like a jar of lotion, you don't want to see that you've already scooped into it. You want it to be like that satisfying first scoop. So,
right. Yes.
always having new products. So
Okay.
I had like 500, that's an exaggeration, but like opened jars of lotion,
Yes.
and things like that. And we weren't allowed to sell them, obviously, after we had created the content. So I would just keep them, and I still use them a lot.
Yes.
But I still have product. I haven't worked in that industry in like 4 years, and I'm still using these products.
Yes.
But I also found that through that, I sort of found that I had this like scarcity mindset of like, well, I would not throw this away because this is a $200 moisturizer. Of course, I'm going to keep it because it's worth something. And then that came the back talk of like, Rachel, like, yes, it's valued at $200, but is it worth that in your apartment? Like, could that space be used for something else? Or is every time you're going in the cabinet and pulling it out, you're pulling out 5 other things and it's causing you stress and anxiety? So, can we talk for a minute about sort of that like lack mindset that people might have?
Yes, that it's such a good point. And what you struggle with is what a lot of us struggle with. And I think when we want to move towards more of that abundant thinking, and being grateful for what we have rather than looking for the next new shiny thing is really important. And one of the key aspects of the KonMari method is gratitude. And so if we are letting go of items, we actually thank the owner, thank it for the service it's provided to us, or if it's got a tag on it and we haven't used it, then we actually need to think about what is the lesson that we can take from this and thank the owner for the lesson it's taught us so that we don't make that same mistake again in the future. And often we do hang on to items out of guilt because of the money or the value of the item. But unfortunately, that money is sunk, that money is gone. And even if we want to resell it, we're never going to get the value of the product.
Right.
And so it really is about thinking, okay, well, that money is gone, but into the future, how can I make sure that I don't make these same mistakes again? I don't get drawn in to get a new shiny item. I don't need it.
Right. That's a great tip to use. So we've talked kind of about people doing this method slowly and about thanking their items and having that gratitude. If someone wants to get started decluttering their lives, is there any other tips that you can share that people can take with them today? Maybe, I don't know, put on a podcast or, do it with a friend. These are not actual tips. I'm just giving examples. So you tell me if there's any other tips.
Yes, look, it is exhausting. I will warn people, it's exhausting. It's physically exhausting and emotionally exhausting. So one big tip I would say is make sure you commit the time and the effort to decluttering. So pop it in your diary, block some time out in your diary and make sure that you commit to doing that. Often people just put it on a to-do list, and then, of course, we know what happens with items on a to-do list that we find overwhelming. They just drop off the list. So really commit to this process. And as you say, it can be difficult doing it on your own. So if you can find a buddy where you can share how you're progressing. I know I often chat to friends out having coffee and they go home so motivated and then they send me photos of what they've decluttered and how their space looks now, which is I just love. So, if you've got a friend you can do that with. I do have a Facebook group, and so people can use my Facebook group to connect with myself or other people and share their wins or their challenges. And having a checklist. So I have the KonMari checklist where people can tick off and just work through it. And often just ticking off that you've achieved a small category gives you that really great sense of achievement. And satisfaction, and it motivates you to do more. And sorry, Rachel, I've just thought of one more tip, particularly for people who do find it overwhelming and struggling to get started. Using a timer can be great. So, and just setting yourself 15 minutes. So that sounds like realistic and manageable, doesn't it? If you say to yourself, I'm just going to tidy for 15 minutes. Often what happens is people get so engrossed in it and it's so rewarding, they actually keep going. I was talking to a client in my coaching program last night. She said she set herself 15 minutes. 4 hours later, she'd forgotten to eat lunch. She was just so motivated and energized by the decluttering process.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Sometimes I have to psych myself out and do that also.
Yes. It's all about the mindset.
Yeah, I'll pour a little glass of champagne and I'll be like, well, if we're celebrating gratitude of these items, let me just, celebrate whatever gets it done in a positive way, I guess.
And that's exactly right. And look, I always say to my clients, build in a reward at the end, whether it be a glass of champagne or a cup of tea or just, a walk or a catch up with a friend, some little reward for the effort that you put in. And that's motivating as well.
100%. That's great. My last kind of question for you here is, do you have any advice to give people who maybe have accumulated so much and they have gone through the decluttering process, but don't necessarily want to throw things away? Have you found any good resources to send items to or recommendations, places people could donate?
Yeah, that's a good point because often if we know where an item's going to go, it's actually easier for us to let go of it. And so I really encourage people to look around in their local community. There's often lots of community groups that are looking for items. Dogs' homes, those sorts of shelters will often take sort of towels or bits and pieces like that. There's also now lots of opportunities for recycling as well of our items. But definitely charity shops are a great one, local community groups, and also just look to your friends, even though I don't say give away all your stuff to friends and weigh them down with your possessions, but they may be something that people need. So there are lots of good online shops and forms as well where you can promote yourself free or for sale.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And
I'm a big
swap.
Facebook group person.
Oh, yeah. So, yes. So Facebook Marketplace is great, or just your own private Facebook page, just let people know what you're getting rid of. And you can, of course, also hold swap parties. They're always lots of fun as well.
That was going to be my next thing that I mentioned is that I am a part of a swap group and
Perfect.
we have parties like every month.
Yes.
And so we'll all bring items of clothing, in different body types, different styles. And,
Yes.
sometimes it's makeup, shoes, clothes, and we all swap. So then we're getting that satisfaction and the gratification of having something new to us,
Yes.
but also not new. It's sustainable. And if you don't love it after, a month or so, just go to the next one and swap it again. So
Yes.
I love a good swap party. Have you been to any ones that are not clothing related? I'm interested to hear.
I was talking to somebody recently and they hold swap parties regularly, and it's just not clothing. It's any household
Everything.
item, which I think is fantastic.
It's great. I might have to do that.
Yes. And you could even hold a different theme each month. So maybe it's kitchen month and everybody brings gadgets who don't use that you could swap.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's a good way to build that community that will help us achieve it.
Absolutely. Yes, it's got that lovely element of not only the circular economy and thinking about our environment, but as you say, that community network is lovely.
100%. Okay, Melinda, I think we are at the end of today's episode. I'm going to give you a minute. You mentioned a quote here, and I will allot some time for you to say the quote and also just talk a little bit about what it means to you and how it's impacted your journey.
Thanks, Rachel. So my quote is actually one of Marie Kondo's, and it is the question of what you want to own is actually the question of how you want to live your life. And so the quote actually reminds us that every item that we choose to keep should reflect that the life we want to create and live. So it's not so much about having less, but really about having and keeping what truly matters to us and will support us to live our best life.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And it's just reminding me of I've really done a lot since moving and living on my own. I live in an apartment in Los Angeles, and
Okay.
LA is pretty expensive. So I
Yes.
always, had roommates up until like 4 years ago. And now I have everything that I could want. And like I said, it's been decluttered, and I find that I bring a lot of peace and joy into my home, so much so
Yes.
that other people feel it.
I
And
know.
I can't tell you the number of times people have come in my home and have said, Rachel, your house has such great energy, or they have sat on my couch and cried because
Oh.
they just feel like this nurturing, kind of cracked open, peaceful, loving, safe energy. It's not
Yes.
crying in a negative way.
Yes.
And so I could be a really good testament to that quote,
Mhm.
because that's what happens when you have things that are aligned. It doesn't just feel aligned to you, but everyone else in your life also sees it and feels it.
Oh, that's so true.
Yeah. Okay, Melinda, I am going to give you the next couple minutes to plug your Instagram, Facebook, website, whatever you have, so that people can find you and work with you.
Yes, so I have a website, www.livelifeorganised.com.au, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I love the socials. So Instagram is live_life_organised, and just Live Life Organised on Facebook. And at any of those sites, you can grab my free essential decluttering checklist. So it's 10 steps and a KonMari checklist as well. So that's a great starter for people. They do want to start off on the decluttering journey. And then they'll also get a weekly email with tips and motivation from me. And they can find out all about the online coaching, one-on-one and group coaching that I offer on my website as well.
Awesome. I am definitely going to check out your site and grab my checklist because
Excellent.
I can always use more decluttering. But I will put all of your links in the bio so that people can click to them easier. But I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the Dangerously Divine podcast. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thanks, Rachel. I've had a lovely time. Thank you.
And to my listeners, know that I love you more today than yesterday, but less than tomorrow. And I will see you all next week on the Dangerously Divine podcast. Thank you for listening.